As I was introduced, my topic is about nutrition, a big topic, that a word, a concept, an idea that we've all spoken about from time to time. But in reality, it seems to me that we haven't been able to find very much consensus about what that word really means. So I want to share with you some of the stuff that I've learned in the last 60 plus years with many students and colleagues and others on this question concerning what is nutrition and what is the right kind of food to eat in order to get the best possible health. In any case, let me start out with a big idea. It's one that has sort of come to me over the years, but I think it's worth saying. Namely, nutrition, when done right, can create more health than all the pills and procedures combined. I know that's a big, startling idea, but I really mean that. If we do it right, if we eat the right food, we get away from drugs, we can be healthy. So there's a problem, basically, and this is the problem I want to address here. Nutrition is not taught in medical schools. There's not a medical school in the United States that properly teaches nutrition, hardly at all in many of them. Secondly, among the 130 or so medical specialties, which is a sort of the procedure by which physicians are reimbursed for services, of the 130 medical specialties that we now have, not one is called nutrition. So here's a problem. Here are the professionals who are supposed to be offering us their services in the area of health care are not being taught the one subject that is the most important in my view of all. And secondly, even if they didn't know something about it and they got some training, they're not really going to be able to get reimbursed for services. Therein lies some of the problem with the fact that some people, many people in this country, have difficulty understanding what this question is really all about. Of course, as I mentioned, the public is massively confused. That's one of the reasons.
I got nothing left to prove. I be jumping out the gym. Every time they watch the tape, man, I still got on film. When you talk about the ones, just know I'm one of them. Put it into the confusion, let's be sure to make it clear. This my second season, was the rookie of the year. When you ask about just in time, some might tell you that I'm him. RIP my cousin Tasha and free my homie Tim. I just chill with my cousin Ma, he say cause you for real. When they try to keep you down, you should use that as a strength. The one that reach their goals are the ones that are equipped. 1, 2, 3, 4, watch them haters jumping ship. They want something new, tell them this right here is thick. I'm a floating milk butter, it be jumping out the pot. When I hop behind the mic, give it everything I got. You put in little thought, end up costing you a lot. I drop hit after hit, they expected me to stop, but I'm him.
And it needs to be solved, because there's so much to offer, actually. It's very difficult to know, quite frankly, and I think you would agree with this, that one of the
my floating milk butter, it be jumping out the pot. When I hop behind the mic, give it everything I got. You put in little thought, end up costing you a lot. I drop hit after hit, they expected me to stop, but I'm him.
Problems with this issue about confusion, it's very difficult to know for the average person to know whether or not a claim, radio, TV, and conversation or whatever, it's very difficult to know how valid that claim may be. And I'm sure many of you know that claims are all over the map, quite in contrast with each other. So, as I look back over the years that I've been involved in this, I've sort of sorted out a couple of ideas that if we stick to these two ideas alone, we'll get to that sort of land that I'm talking about where so much health can be created. First off, eat whole foods. Whole foods. Not the individual nutrients and food fragments within them.
When the going get tough, man, just hit your knees and pray. My grandma prayed for me, that's why I'm still here today. This life we live today, like we running in the maze. This beat make you lean like you walking with a cane. When I grab the microphone, man, I leave them all amazed. When I started, they would laugh, now you should see they face. We too fragile like a phone without a case. My flow so hot like a show Mars plate. I look for inner peace, they want fortune and fame. I think I set the box, man, that's how I changed the game. It's like drawing in the lines, keep on smiling through the pain like Steph Curry, wide open, man, I'm good from long range. I'm here. The way I walk it out, you ain't seen it in a minute. My flow got grit, I can play for the Grizzlies. Everything collab like a shot to the kidneys. When I grab the microphone, send everything into a frenzy. I'm him.
And by that I mean I'm talking about nutrient supplements. We've done a lot of research on nutrient supplements. It's a huge industry, multi-billion dollars a year.
The way I walk it out, you ain't seen it in a minute. My flow got grit, I can play for the Grizzly. Everything collapse like a shot to the kidneys. When I grab the microphone, send everything into a frenzy. I'm him.
50% of the population using nutrient
I'm him.
supplements as a means to nutrition. I'm not talking about that. Nutrients taken out of food, out of the context, do not do exactly the same thing for the most part that they do when they're in food. And secondly, there are fragments taken out of even plants, incidentally, and I'm referring to plants as a good form of nutrition. Even the stuff that's taken out of plants, like oil, sugar, if you will, maybe the right kind of food in a sense, but when we take it out and use it separately, we get a different response than what we do, generally speaking, in the whole food. Plants, this is another idea to keep in mind, plants provide all the protein we need. That's somewhere around 8 to 10% of total calories. That turns out, if you look at the literature more carefully, that's enough. We do not need to eat animal foods to get the animal protein. Plants have all the protein we need to have. So just those two ideas. Whole food, obviously meaning plants because they don't need the animal protein, animal foods go along with it. That combination really works. Now, my career started, as I said, many, many years ago, and I happened to come across an idea when I was working with the Philippines, helping to coordinate a national program in feeding malnourished children, where in fact our efforts were intended to actually make sure these children got enough protein, even good quality protein, animal protein if you like. And I saw something that sort of didn't exactly agree with that. I won't get into those details, but it led to this question. Animal-based protein, which was my background, did not look to be as good as it was touted to be. So we organized a study. And so we started looking into this question. Is protein as good as what we think it is, as I had thought it was? Here's one little display of some information among hundreds of things like this. Cancer, we all tend to agree, starts with a gene being mutated. It's happening more or less all the time in some of our cells. So it starts with a gene mutation, normal cell to a cancer cell. And so as a result of it starting with a gene, if we have cancer genes, we're going to get cancer, right? That leads to sort of some suggestions we should get analyzed for genetic background and this and that. But it's not, cancer is not, in my view, a genetic disease. Even though that's the most highly touted maxim, if you will, of the cancer industry. Here's what happens. This is an experimental animal study that we used in much of my career early on.
From start to finish, never switch up in the struggle. Blood pressure through the roof. Man, that almost took me under. Had to manage my stress and start drinking water. It get deep. Can somebody pass a plunger? If I had the chance, I'd tell my sister how much I love her. Appreciation for life is one thing that I discovered. Don't wanna see the facts, blindfolds are too common. If this world was mine, we would help one another. I hear sirens in the dark, news cameras in the morning. When we lost all hope, I showed up cause of disturbance. Misguided in the youth when they blessed to see this moment. For the families of the fallen, I extend my condolences for real. We already cooked, we sit back and peel and eat. When I drop another tape, got the last one on repeat. I look death in the face and got right back on my feet. Man, let's turn this thing around, that's before we face defeat, for real.
We start with a mutated gene, and we follow the progression of the early cancer over the first 12 weeks. If we fed lower levels of protein, 5%. Remember I said 8 to 10% is fine?
We already cooked, we sit back and peel and eat. When I drop another tape, got the last one on repeat. I look death in the face and got right back on my feet. Man, let's turn this thing around, that's before we face defeat, for real.
Good enough? So we start with 5%. We feed the animals who have the mutated gene, the 5% protein, we get no cancer. If we feed them, on the other hand, the higher levels of protein, 20%, we get lots of cancer. So here's a striking difference between 5 and 20%. But then we went to the next question. I wanted to know whether or not, what would happen if we just switched the diet back and forth between 5% and 20%? So starting with 20%, okay, the first 3 weeks, the cancers are growing. These are pre-cancerous lesions, if you will. Switch it to 5%, it turns it off. 20%, we turned it back on again.
I stand up and lead the charge. Look within to find the answers. Get ready for the show. Talking lights, camera action. When it's time to talk business, I will talk proper like Braxton. I proved I was different. Now I'm starting to see the distance. What is one to do in life? There you a box of lemons. It's hard to get me down. In the open field, I'm shifty. Hesitation, stop momentum. Roll the dice is pretty tricky. Bet it all on the house. And the odds was 50-50. I did it again, man. Shout out to Britney since I went against the grain, man. It started to cause some friction. The way I rock my flow, man, it captured their attention. I dared to be different since I was an adolescent. I'm him. Hot sauce, add a couple drops of taste. You can feel it in your soul. I put something on your brain. When you start from behind, it get hard to maintain. When I look around the globe, man, I see the same thing for real.
5% we turned it off. That was striking at that time, still is today for a lot of people. Because if we assume that cancer is all coming from genes, and if you have the genes, you're going to get cancer maybe. If you don't, you won't.
Hot sauce, add a couple drops of taste. When you feel it in your soul, I put something on your brain. When you start from behind, it get hard to maintain. I look all over the globe and I see the same thing for real.
If you will. In this particular case, what we were showing was nutrition was important. So it leads to this idea here. We may have cancer genes, all of us, whether we're born with them or whether they're created during our lifetime, they're sort of hanging around. They remain basically silent until they're nourished. So it puts the onus then on the question concerning nutrition being the cause of cancer, not genetics. You know, we think of nutrition in a very simplistic way. We tend to think of individual nutrients doing their individual things. We value foods according to how much nutrients have this, that, or something else. And so most of our thinking about nutrition is focused on individual nutrients. In reality, it turns out and this is just one thought, it turns out the amount of nutrients we consume, let's say in a spoonful, a cupful, whatever, we can know how much is there in theory, but that has little relationship to how much nutrient there may be at the functional site, wherever that may be in the body. So the amount we're consuming here has almost nothing to do, quantitatively speaking, with the amount that's operating in the functional site, which raises a question. There's a lot going on between here and there. And it's sort of an activity, a biological activity is very, very complex. And then individual nutrients, when they're examined for their activities, generally we think of, and this is the way it tends to get taught, this nutrient causes this response, and here's the mechanism by which it works. That's the way we tend to think, and that's the way, you know, cause and effect relationships often happen. It turns out that in our hands, the protein turned on to cancer. I wanted to know what was the mechanism by which it worked, which enzyme, which transport mechanism, or what have you might be working. That's the basis for the entire drug industry in large measure. If we see something going wrong and we want to solve the problem, we want to know what the mechanism is. So maybe we can make a chemical to block it if we wish, or enhance it, whatever the case may be. It turned out in our hands. The protein caused cancer, but not by one mechanism. Every time we looked for a mechanism in a sense, we found one. Got up to about 10 or so, and a couple of those mechanisms, not only was the protein turning on the process,